Hi, this is the third piece in a series about the basics of systems thinking. And a week or two ago, I released Systems Thinking 101A and 101B. And because things in a system are not linear, these videos have some places where they repeat. And so if there's something that you're not getting when I'm saying, go check out those other two short videos. And then my husband is working on a piece that'll be longer and include custom moving graphics and animations so that hopefully this will be easier to grok. So hang in there. This little piece is the able and unable balancing loop. So a balancing loop is the culprit when we sense that there's an oscillation. So if I'm being pulled one way and then I'm being pulled another and then I'm being pulled one way and then I'm being pulled another, somewhere in my life there is a balancing loop or a set of balancing loops that are causing this behavior. So in this case, if you've been hanging around my channel for a while, you might have caught on that I have multiple neurological and cardiological glitches, I call them, and I'm technically disabled. But as you can see, sometimes I seem perfectly healthy and other times I do not. So this example is straight out of my life, but it really applies to any kind of health condition where you can relapse and recover and relapse and recover. So I hope this is useful to some of you who are spoonies like me, and then it should be useful to anyone who's interested in systems thinking. Okay, so let's just say that X is the times when I feel like I can do a thing. Right now, I can do a thing, I feel able. So that's the X. And then the Y is the times when I'm unable. That is going to be the Y in my balancing loop diagram. So I'm able to do stuff and I do stuff, and the more I do, the more I trigger being unable because I have a tendency to do too much. But when I'm unable, I rest a whole lot, and then I go back to here and I become able again. So up here I'm able and I'm producing and until I have some kind of a crash, and then I am unable and I am not producing. And let me just say that there is so much more value to a human being than whether you're producing or not. I'm just using that to illustrate the math and physics of the pattern. But if you know me at all, you know that I have a huge heart. And obviously your health matters whether you're producing a thing or not. So just forgive me for some of these coarse kind of science and math terms that I'm going to use, okay? So this is a balancing loop, and the symbol for that is just a basic balance beam. And the way that feels in my life is like I showed you at the beginning. I'm able and then I'm unable. It makes an actual sine wave. All of these balancing loops produce can be mapped in a behavior over time graph. So this is time right here, and this is my behavior, and in this case it's able and unable. So able's up here and unable's down here, and this is time 0, and this is, you know, however long you want to think about. And so right here I'm on the up and I'm able to do some things, and can you see that? Okay. I'm on the up, I'm able to do some things, but then I overdo it and I crash. And it goes like that. I'm going to erase and do this a little bit better so that you can really sort of start to feel it. I think the trick to systems thinking is trying to feel the forces in physics. You can feel how fast the wind is. You can feel how fast you decelerated when you hit the brakes on the car. So I want you to try to feel this. Okay, so behavior over time. So I'm doing good, I'm not doing good. I'm doing good, I'm not doing good. I'm doing good, I'm not doing good. That's a sine wave. The times that I'm doing good, the times that I'm not doing good. And there are limiting factors. So you might remember this from, let's say, a biology class where you talked about if the deer don't have enough food, they will die. That's a limiting factor, how much food there is for the deer in that environment. So for me, it's like I can only do so much, and there's this critical threshold. I've actually been disabled for 7 years, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about that and trying to understand what can I do and how much is too much. And so I can tell you with great certainty that there is a threshold. Sometimes when I get a new medication or I'm experiencing some kind of new treatment or adapting new behavioral patterns that are, healthier for me, I could raise my threshold. And so I could have a longer period before the crash. So that's a good thing. That's something that we can try to manage toward as people who are living with some kind of condition where there's like a chronic cycle of recover and relapse. Okay, so, but then there's also, so I talked about this limiting factor at the top, but there's something similar happening at the bottom. There's, you don't usually get lower than your lowest low. There were some times when, all hell broke loose and I had a really bad crash. And there are occasionally times when you can leap above your normal threshold. This happens in a system, but doesn't change the pattern, because the pattern is still this oscillation, doing too much, crashing, doing too much, crashing. So the goal is to find this top limiting factor and then try to surf just beneath that crash point, which is what I've been doing lately. And because it's been 7 years, I understand this really well. I know how many spoons I have. Look up the spoon theory if you've not heard that. And so I can kind of, spend more time up here. And also, one of the things that's possible in adapting your behavior is, so maybe I had some really big erratic things, and then over time, I got it like this. I think that actually sort of describes my 7 years. So there were times when learning combined with treatment helped me to, and maybe sometimes that was more like this. But adapting, learning, understanding, watching the patterns, trying new meds, changing diet, adapting new behaviors, yoga, meditation. Those weren't new for me, but I've had to reintroduce them at a lot of times. I mean, we all start an exercise regime and then let that go. And there's another whole balancing loop. Times when you're exercising and times when you're not. Right? I mean, that's relatable to, I think, everybody. So, I hope that by me sharing this, you understand how a balancing loop can work. And in the world of complex adaptive systems, there are multiple balancing loops and multiple amplifying loops, and they're tied together and they're influencing one another. And even sometimes one loop can shut off another loop, or the presence of a loop can suddenly take a pattern and just drive it to a whole new dimension. And over the however long it takes me to share this stuff, let's say months, over the next couple of months, I'm going to hopefully be painting a picture that will help you to start to see the complex adaptive systems in your life and recognize how they're behaving and how they're moving, and how I am not in charge, right? Okay, this I think is an important thing. I am the system in this case, but I'm not in charge of all of the behaviors and outputs and outcomes. Just like in an organization, a nurse or a doctor or a school teacher is, their behavior is dictated by the system, but they aren't always aligned with how those systems behave. Now, I know right now there are a lot of teachers who do not like the way education has been happening. So, you know, you could have a system comprised of 100 members, and all 100 members want the system to go that way, and it does not. It goes like this. And that's because we don't completely understand how the complex web of cause and effect creates the behaviors, outputs, and outcomes. Yeah, so this tiny little 2-variable balancing loop describes a whole lot of stuff in my life. It's not my entire reality, but it's certainly a big part of it. But then there's a whole lot of little molecules that comprise my reality. And this is just one of them. And this influences everything. It influences my parenting. It influences my marriage. It influences my checkbook. It influences my social life. It's like the weak link for my whole reality. And it's just, there's only 2 variables here. So just stop and think about how complex it is just to be a person as a system, and then factor in that I, as a person, am also a member of multiple other social systems. So it's not as simple as 1 or 2 people in positions of power being bad. Sometimes they are. I'm not saying they're not, but that's overly simple. Okay. Anyways, that's all I've got time for. I need to make sure I can upload this with my slow internet. I love you guys. Ask questions. Bear with me because I do crash. And when I'm down there, I don't remember how any of this works. So I can't teach during those times. Okay, thanks. Love you. Bye.